everything else. My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. And Joy and I are two very old friends who are going to talk about murder and everything else. So, Joy and anyone listening, last week I mentioned that one of my, was it last week? Anyway, previously I have mentioned that, no, it wasn't last week. Anyway, that one of my must haves in life is the sun. And
Hmm.
it has been raining the last 2 days, and I really feel it. I really get it really affects my mood. Like,
But you live in the desert, so you probably really need the rain.
probably I gotta get out of here. Anyway, yeah, it's been raining and, um, I shouldn't complain because then in 3 months, I'm gonna be in sunny hell. It'll just be 120 degrees for 4 months. Even at night, this is the problem. It drops like 2 degrees after the sun goes down.
Ooh,
It's
I was
horrible.
gonna ask you, do you think that you could like live in a place with polar night and polar sun where, I think I talked about it once before, this island. It's in the Arctic Circle called Svalbard. And it's like, I want to say it's like the furthest northernmost point where you can actually, where there's like a community of people. Of course, everything is like shipped in, trucked in. It's shipped in from other places. So, like a thing of strawberries is like $25 because, because everything's so expensive. It's coming from I think Greenland or Iceland. Not no, I think it's trucked into those places too. It's probably coming from Denmark or something. But you and I both know they're probably not growing those strawberries in Denmark. They're probably growing them in Spain. But it's really, really far north. So every summer they go through a period of, and it's not like weeks, it's months of daylight. And every winter they go through a period of months of complete darkness.
Uh-uh. No, that sounds like hell.
I will say this, that there's a lady who has a YouTube channel, and she does these great videos, that like teach you about it, what it's like living there, etc. She says, like, it doesn't matter if you go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, if you go to bed at 7 o'clock in the evening, because it's all dark. So
That
if you get a hair in your ass to clean the house at 3 in the morning, get crazy, because it's not like anybody cares.
yeah, no, I could not. What about you?
I think it might be fun to go for like a month to see what it's like and to see how your body responds. Um, don't you think it would be fun to just
No,
go check it out? Okay.
no,
Well,
absolutely not. That fun
I
is not the word that comes to mind.
also, she'll go outside and she'll go, "Hello, everybody. It's, so and so." And she'll be like, "It's minus 27 degrees today." And I'm like, "Hell no." And sometimes she goes on her porch in her jammies. I'm sorry. Minus 27 degrees. I mean,
Uh,
it when it gets down to like 40 here, I'm just grouchy. That's 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
and
So I'm just a grouch because I hate being cold.
and you think that would be fun then? You
Well,
still
if
you'd
you have
stand on
a
that?
roaring fireplace, I mean, it might be fun just to see like the northern lights, right?
Oh,
The
no.
aurora borealis. I mean, I understand that you can see those sometimes, like if you live in Minnesota. Hey, if anybody lives in Minnesota and is listening, could you just reach out and let us know if you've seen the aurora borealis?
My sister went, to see the Northern Lights. And, that's great for a trip, but I could not live somewhere like that. Look, 2 days of
Ooh.
rain and I'm already depressed.
But where did she go? Did she go to like Iceland or did she go to like Minnesota?
No, she went to Alaska.
Anyway, welcome back, all of our listeners. This will not air until a couple weeks from now because we do record in advance, but it's April 1st. So happy April Fool's Day. Um, I have an update today, and that is every week since we have started this podcast, we have given a disclaimer that this podcast is not for children. Now, it shows up on Spotify with the explicit rating because we do not censor ourselves and because every other week we try to talk about murder or true crime. So we're talking about body parts in vats of what's that acid called? Muriatic
Muriatic.
acid. I
Yeah.
cannot believe I remembered that, by the way. Um, and so we obviously talk about things that kids shouldn't listen to, but because we fall into the explicit category and because everybody can decide for themselves, we're no longer going to do a disclaimer at the beginning of each podcast. So if you made it this far and you're still subscribed and you're still listening, guess what? We won't we won't be bringing that up. We'll still, give you guys like trigger warnings
Trigger
and things like
warning. Yeah.
that. Yeah, at the beginning, but just know that we'll not be telling the kids to leave the room anymore. So if they walk in the room and Cheryl screams fuck out loud, it's all on you. It's not on us. Okay?
That's what I frequently do, just suddenly burst out the F bomb.
She's a real potty mouth. Um, I also have another update on Gypsy Rose Blanchard. We did an episode on Gypsy Rose. For those of you who've been around for a while and been listening to us for a while, I'm going to let you know. And those of you who are new and don't know, the Gypsy Rose Blanchard episode was in season 1 and it was called Mommy Dead and Dearest. And it was episode 41 and it aired on October 22nd. So head on over there and listen to it. But she's in the news again. Remember, I think she was just in the news like last week or the week before because
I
remember
think
she canceled her social media. But now she has separated from her husband Ryan Anderson 3 months after her prison release. And the article says it wasn't all roses for these two. Don't you love that?
surprise, surprise.
It says they are calling it quits less than 3 months after she was released. Blanchard, 32, announced a split in a post on her private Facebook account Thursday, according to People magazine. How private is People magazine? I mean, come on.
I just want to know if there's any couple out there who one of you or both of you, no, one of you was incarcerated at the time that you got married and are still together because the odds are, the odds are not good.
Yeah, and you can also reach out to us if you're in a marriage and you want to be incarcerated. We'd love to hear about that. Anyway, Gypsy Rose is quoted as saying, people have been
Uh,
asking what is going on in my life. Unfortunately, my husband and I are going through a separation, and I moved in with my parents' home down the bayou. I have the support of my family and friends to help guide me through this. I'm learning to listen to my heart. Right now, I need time to let myself find who I am. So, Gypsy Rose, we wish you the best. We hope you find out who you are. And it sounds like you'll be finding out without your husband. So, if anyone else out there listening has found out who they are without their husband or their wife or their partner, let us know because I want to know what that's like, what that looks like, and what did they find out about themselves? I'm super intrigued. Anyway, Cheryl, you got any updates?
Well, I don't know if it's an update, but I wanted to share this, the whole situation I shared with my love and hate of technology, or more accurately, or more like specifically, the instructions that come with stuff, the instructions that come with shit that you buy. I said, ignore it and just go on YouTube. Well, so remember the first printer I bought and all the trouble I went through? And then I found YouTube and I found someone on YouTube that showed me how to connect it to Wi-Fi within seconds. And then I followed the instruction on the manual to unplug it if you're not going to use it for a while, even
Right.
though my advice was to disregard the manual. So I
Mhm.
followed that piece and then I unplugged it and then freaking had to set everything up again. Well, I returned that one, right? Because it only copied. No, it only printed and didn't copy. To all the printer makers out there, it is ridiculous. I don't know anyone that just needs to print. If you're going to make a printer, it should copy as well. It seemed ridiculous, but I guess it's on me that I didn't notice that it only printed. So I returned that one and I got a higher grade model that copies and scans and all this stuff. And because of the struggles that I went through and all the learning curves that I went through with that first printer, the second one sat in a box because I'm like, I don't feel like dealing with this right now. I'm just gonna wait till the next time I have to print to set it up. But then I thought I better hook it up now in case something's wrong with it, because then I'll miss the return window. And I would like to proudly announce that I set it up so fast, Joy, because I just used how I did it with the other one and I connected to Wi-Fi in a breeze. I tested the printing and the copying and it's working like a charm. I'm not going to unplug it. Even if I use it once a year, that thing is staying plugged in. But that's the update I wanted to give, that sometimes there's a silver lining in your struggles.
Nice. That's really nice, Cheryl. I'm glad that there's a silver lining in that
In that
struggle,
struggle.
that
Yeah.
technology struggle that you have. Um,
Yep.
rolling on to shout outs. I I have a shout out to my side piece, Gabe, who has not been feeling great lately and is still producing our podcast, even when he isn't feeling great. This podcast, for those of you who are still listening to us, is a labor of love and creativity, and he is a part of that. So, thank you, Gabe, for still producing this podcast and all the work that it entails. It's maybe, I think, 5 minutes a week tops, but still, that's 5 minutes
Right.
that
No,
that
thank you, Gabe.
neither Cheryl or I are invested in. So,
Right.
I mean, we're invested in the podcast. We just can't be bothered with learning how to do what he does, right?
Right. Thank you, Gabe. We appreciate
Eh,
it.
we do. And then another shout out to my friend Maria, who has been altering my summer wardrobe, making it possible for me to look fashionable in my 50s. You know what she does, Cheryl? I buy clothes sometimes that like are too long, or that I don't want long sleeves on, that I want short sleeves or sleeveless, or that I want to change something about it, like take out a zipper and put elastic or something like that. And she does all those things for me. Isn't that amazing? Like, I
That's
can't do
so
that stuff.
awesome. You have
Yeah,
a personal seamstress.
I know I can't do that. And I think I don't know if I've ever said this, but when I graduated from high school, my mom bought me a sewing machine as a present, and I took it and returned it. And it was the first defiant statement that I gave. Up until then, I don't think anyone in my family had ever returned anything, and she was so offended. And what I did was I had asked her for the receipt because I said I wanted to go to the store and look around at the other sewing machines, and I came back with, I'll never forget this, with a Pentax camera.
Oh,
And so
I
the sewing machine morphed into a camera, and she was so offended. But guess what?
oh
I never learned how to sew. Never, never, never.
yeah, I would. That's a pretty good trade-off, I think. I mean, I can see how it, yeah, probably bothered your mom, but you probably made really good use of the camera, right?
Yeah, I don't even have the camera anymore. So I can tell you I have pictures though that I took with it. And in 30 years, you'll not even be able to recognize who's in the pictures because they'll be completely blurry and washed out of color. But anyway, Um, my final shout out goes out to my friend Yasmin, who's moving to Peru and no longer is going to be my nanny buddy at work. We get together every day while the little ones play, and she helps me practice my Spanish. Anyway, your presence will be hard to replace. Que tengas un buen viaje, Yasmin, y no te olvides de tu amiga Joy. Anyway, Cheryl, that is a private message in another language. Do you have any shout out?
I have a shout out to my doctor who canceled our appointment today. Yay!
Woo!
Because I didn't
Yay!
feel like going.
I
I didn't feel
know.
like going to it, and they called this morning and they said she's not going to make it in. Can we reschedule? And I was like, hell yes, we can.
Oh yeah.
That's my
Was it
shout
one
out.
of those was it one of those appointments where you have to drop trow and put on the paper dress?
No, it was just a follow up to my
Freaking
blood
hate
tests.
those.
No, and
I
it
freaking hate those because then you have to shave because you don't want to have like errant hairs. Then you also have to shave your legs because you don't want to have scratchy legs because they do the knee thing, where they tap your knee to see if you like have one. And then they, you just have to like do a once over because you have to clean out the belly button. You just don't want to be laying there with stuff, crust or anything else seeping out. So, because you've got the paper dress on.
no,
So,
it was just yeah, no. You know what? I've just I've had so many like medical things, medical appointments that I was happy to reschedule this one.
yeah. All right. Hey, letters from our listeners this week. We do not have any letters from our listeners, but that doesn't mean we don't love to hear from you. So remember, you guys can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com. You can text us, tweet us, Instagram us, TikTok us. We always love to hear from our listeners. And also remember to subscribe to this podcast and tell 200 of your best friends and family about our little podcast that just won't quit. Do you have any letters from our listeners, Cheryl?
Do you have to ask for real?
All right. On that note, this week, you guys, we are exiting the murder highway, and Cheryl has prepared a riveting, educational, and informational, and inspirational, and
Oh, really?
podcast for us this week. So take it away, Cheryl.
Well, I want to. So we're doing a sort of a switch up here, a change up, if you will, because last week Joy did murder, and so I'm doing non-murder, and I thought it would be fun to put Joy on the spot, because you are hilarious with your worldview and your way of thinking. But I am going to say an idiom, and an idiom is a phrase that, when taken as a whole, has a meaning you wouldn't be able to deduce from the meanings of the individual words. It's essentially the verbal equivalent of using the wrong math formula but still getting the correct answer. So the phrase "kill two birds with one stone" is an example of an idiom. So I thought it would be really fun for me to say an idiom, give an idiom to Joy, and for her to give us her idea of where the origin of the idiom comes from. So to start off with, Joy, let's start off with that one. So please, okay, for first, kill two birds with one stone is the idiom. We've all heard it, right? And the meaning is to accomplish two different things at the same time, or to solve two problems with one single action. So Joy, please tell us in all your wisdom, where do you think kill two birds with one stone originates from?
I think it comes from like somebody with a slingshot would like, like or an arrow, bow and arrow would like shoot the arrow at the bird, but it hit one bird and then the other, and then it was so fast that it then hit another bird. Or the other thing could be like the birds were doing it, and when it hit one bird, it also skewered the second bird because the birds were stuck together. But I just realized that birds have eggs, which means they wouldn't be doing it. But, but I think chickens do it, so I'm not really sure now. Do birds do it? Or are they like fish where they just like drop some sperm on the eggs and the eggs hatch? I don't know. I
Well,
don't
we're
know where
gonna
that
have
came
to
from.
we'll have to follow up next week with we'll have to do a follow-up with do birds do it? Okay. So the origin, and I got this
I think
from
they do because of birds and the bees, remember?
oh yeah, huh. Well,
I'm
that's
really
another
s-
one. So I got this from the idioms.com. It is believed, okay, here, okay. You know how you all know how great I am with foreign language and pronunciation. So we're going into Greek mythology. So this is going to be really fun, if you can call it that. It is to be believed that the phrase was originated from the story of Daedalus. I don't know if that's right. And Icarus from Greek mythology. Daedalus killed two birds with one stone in order to get the feathers of the birds and make the wings. The father and son who escaped from the labyrinth on Crete by making wings and flying out. According to another theory, the saying was derived from the expression from the Proverbs of John Haywood, 1546. 1546 that reads, I will learn to stop two gaps with one bush. So you were pretty close, actually. Give
Well,
yourself half a point for that.
nice.
Very
Wait, what
good.
is two gaps with one bush? You mean like shrubs?
I will learn to stop two gaps with one bush. I don't know. It's the same as kill two birds with one stone. And it's like who, the chicken or the egg comes first? I don't know.
Hmm, that's very
Okay.
interesting.
Okay,
I
here's
will I will say that I don't see how that Greek guy who flew up to the sun and then his feathers melted and he plunged to his death. I don't see how that would have been the origin of kill two birds with one stone. Because remember, well, I guess he and his dad both died, so maybe it does. Okay, yeah. You know what? Let's move on.
okay, here's another one we've all heard and I've used actually quite recently. And it is don't look a gift horse in the mouth. The meaning is don't be ungrateful when you receive a gift. Do not be critical of a gift you receive. So, Joy, in all your infinite wisdom, where do you think don't look a gift horse in the mouth comes from?
I actually know this one. At least I think I do. So when somebody would get a horse or buy a horse or be gifted a horse or whatever, the what they do is check the horse's teeth to see the age of the horse and the
Oh
overall
my
wellness.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
I can't
I do
believe
know
you
this one.
knew that.
And so in other words, if someone gives you a present, don't ask how much it cost. Don't in other words, don't look under the hood of the car to see. You know what I mean? Like just say thank you and take the gift and that and be done with it. And it's interesting because I feel like when you're kids, your parents are always telling you like just say thank you, just say thank you. Don't say things like I already have this or I don't like this or this isn't I don't like this present because kids are brutally honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
Oh my
but
gosh.
I feel like when we get older and become adults, I feel like it becomes the opposite. Entitled to say, "Oh, you know what? I actually don't wear bras or thank you so much, but pantyhose is something I've never worn before." Like you can actually be honest about a gift. So, anyway,
Oh, really? You would be, I wouldn't.
but
Would
was
you
I
be?
right? Is that where it comes from?
Yes. Oh my gosh. You and Jason Bateman are the two people that I know of. Not that I know, because I don't know Jason Bateman, but they talked about it on Smartless. Um,
Mm.
somebody brought it up and he's like, and he knew where the origin was, and that is exactly what she said, y'all.
Yep.
Uh, it alludes to the fact, this is also from the idioms.com, that this phrase alludes to the fact that the age, hence the usefulness of a horse, can be determined by looking at its teeth. The expression says that if a horse is given as a gift, you should not look at its teeth to determine its quality. It is an ancient expression that, and the exact origin is unknown, but that is what the meaning is, which is incredible that we say
Yep.
these things. Don't look a
What do
gift horse in
you
the mouth.
what do you think about teeth? Like, do you feel like, for example, if you went on a date with somebody and you found out that like maybe they were missing their teeth, like would that be like a deal breaker for you? How important are teeth? Like in a
Are,
relationship and a
is
spouse and
this
in
is
someone
this
you're
a
attracted to?
is this a trick question?
No, I'm just curious. Like some people don't care if their significant other, like, has teeth or not, but some people are really,
Okay, are you talking about
uh,
missing teeth? Oh, sorry. Are you
it's
talking about
Cheryl, it's very common for people our age to not have all their teeth.
well, first of all, are you talking about just missing teeth or bad teeth in general? Like brown teeth?
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I'll just say, and you guys can, those of you listening can just say how superficial and what's the other word? Shallow. Shallow. Remember that song? Anyway, um, I am because I am sorry. I don't care. I think teeth are really important,
So are you
you know?
talking if they were missing teeth, you
Well, I
that would
mean,
be
if
a
you're
deal
missing a
breaker?
couple, like maybe in the back is fine, but like you got to take care of your teeth. They
Yeah.
create the shape of your face. If your teeth are gone, your face shape changes, it collapses. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
know. Like maybe some people don't realize how important teeth are. Maybe their parents don't tell them.
Well, I think people have been in different situations growing up. And also, dental work is very expensive.
Very.
So I can see how that might be through no fault of their own. You know what I mean? But I would,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
missing teeth would be better than bad teeth. Um, just thinking about hygiene and kissing. Not that you're kissing the teeth, but anyway, I
Anyway,
don't
moving
know.
on.
Yeah, moving on. Okay. All right. So we've all heard this and we've all said it. We know you know you have. Sicker than a dog or sick as a dog. And of course, we all know it means to be very sick. Um, the phrase refers to being in a state that is very unpleasant. So, Joy, please give us your take on sicker than a dog.
Huh, it's so interesting because one of the things I think it just means like you stop eating, and one of the things that like so we have two dogs. They're one's medium size, one's large breed. And when the dogs are sick, like it's usually so sick that they have to go to the vet, which means you're pretty sick. And when I say go to the vet, I mean, people, you have to, those of you listening who know me know that my husband's a vet. So if we have to put the dogs in the car and drive them to the vet, they got to be really fucking sick. And so I just, it's usually vomit everywhere and like explosive diarrhea, which is no fun. And like, yeah. So I'm going to just say it's like you said, it just means you're really, really sick.
Okay.
But I will
So,
also say that, like, also people who have dogs know that a dog can go outside, throw up, and then run back outside 20 minutes later and eat their throw ups. So sometimes being as sick as a dog, maybe it doesn't mean that sick. I don't know. So, anywho, you tell me.
Okay, so I got this from Ginger. Um, the origin of the phrase sick as a dog can be found in the early 1700s when it was common to compare undesirable things to dogs. So the dogs got a bad rap back then. It doesn't even mean that they were sick. They just compared undesirable things to dogs. The explanation for this isn't that people didn't like dogs. It is that diseases such as the plague were often spread via animals like rats, birds, and unfortunately dogs.
Wait, when you say that you got this from Ginger, do you mean like a friend named Ginger or like the
Oh no,
actual like
it's a
ginger like
website.
that you buy at the grocery store for Tide detergent?
Yeah, I got some ginger at the grocery store. I boiled it and then I sat in front of it with some very like metaphysical music and then I just meditated on it and like the ginger wafting through my nose, I got this vision. It was almost like what ayahuasca, what is that thing called? Ayahuasca,
Ayahuasca. You're so
ayahuasca. So
ayahuasca.
that's how I got this answer. No, I think it was ginger.com or something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, that's unfortunate. Why didn't we say sick as a rat or sick as a bird?
Well, what's wrong with rats? We used to have two pet rats. They make really good pets. And for those of you who are like worried about like traveling a lot and hiring somebody to watch your animals or whatever, rats only live 2 to 3 years tops. So you don't have to worry about being a pet owner for like 20 years. You could only be a pet owner for like 3 years.
Oh, that I can't take any pets dying anymore. This is my
Even
last
a
pet.
rat.
Would I
No,
have one?
no, even a rat. Because like one of the things I think that people think about like is when animals interact with us. So like dogs and cats specifically, like they look at us, they cock their head to the side like they're listening to us. They respond to us with like love and affection and tail wags and licking. And they give us so much validation. Whereas a rat or a mouse, those like they don't really give us a lot. You know what I mean? They really don't. That nose twitchy thing is cute and everything, but that's pretty much all they're doing. But they do that all the time anyway.
Don't they don't
So,
come to know you? Like they don't can't
oh,
sit
I
on your
mean,
shoulder or whatever?
oh no, our rats were very, very sweet and tame, but like, I don't know, they don't interact with human beings like a dog or a cat. And I think
Well,
what helps us build those bonds with dogs and cats is the level of interaction with the animal. Like
yeah. Yeah,
we're
yeah,
giving
yeah.
them love and in exchange they're giving us love.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I could have a pet that isn't affectionate or I can't
I,
pet or
I think that's why people like rodents and fish and reptiles because and if you have a reptile or a snake or something as a pet and you can tell me that your reptile shows affection, please reach out and let us know because I don't know, like, how would an iguana or a monitor or a boa constrictor indicate affection?
right. I bet they
Would they?
do. Yeah, someone tell us.
They don't eat you. That's it.
That's how they show affection. Yeah. You're alive. You're still alive the next day. That's how
That's
they show
right. Every day is Russian roulette.
affection. Okay, our next one is happy as a clam. I've always wondered about this because I say it. I mean, do you find yourself once, at least once in a while, saying
Yeah.
happy as a clam? Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I
basically
sometimes I sometimes like to say happy as a plate of linguine and clams because that makes
of
me
course you
very
do.
happy to eat.
Oh, I know. I love linguine and clams. Okay.
Oh, so good.
We all know it's a saying that you're happy and content. So let's throw it over to Joy and you tell us where happy as a clam comes from.
Okay, I'm totally guessing, but I'm going to say because the clam is round in shape and it looks like a smile, like your lips are going up on either side, that's what happy as a clam means.
Yeah, I think that that was my guess too. Um,
Am I
but what
right?
I found, well, what I found was my source is capitalize my title. The saying as happy as a clam appears to have originated in the United States in the early part of the 19th century. The full phrase, which is now largely unheard of, which is true, was happy as a clam at high water. So we've it's been
Oh,
abbreviated to happy as a clam. But previously it was happy as a clam at high water. This is significant as high tide is when clams are free from the attacks of their predators, and at low tide, clams can easily be dug up and consumed, while at high tide, this is much more difficult of a feat to accomplish. This is probably why the high tide is the happiest part of their day, as they do not have to fear being eaten by either animals or humans. So that's what it
huh.
was. It used to be happy as a clam at high water.
Oh,
I
that's
thought that
cool.
too. Yeah, I thought maybe it's a shape that looked like a smile, but yeah, I like this one too. It used to be happy. Now, if I start, we should adopt this phrase, the original one, and let's see how it takes off, everyone. So next time,
Let
say happy. I'm happy as a clam at high water today, and then people will give you really funny
Ooh,
looks.
and you know
That'll be
what's cool is we could change all kinds of make all kinds of sayings like that. Like you
yeah.
could be, I'm as happy as crabs in your underwear, or happy as crabs in your crotch. There, I worked the word crotch into the podcast. Yay!
Your work is done.
My
Oh
work
my
is done.
God. But yeah, I like that one.
I do
Okay,
too.
and let's go on to another very famous one that we have all said multiple times in our lives. I don't care how old or young you are. The next one is best thing since sliced bread. The phrase
Good.
better than sliced bread has the same meaning as the phrase itself, implying that something is better than sliced bread. So go ahead, Joy.
I think I know this one, and I'll just say so we buy bread from our friends Monica and Rob. They own Bridge Bakery and they make the best damn bread. And but I because they have a bakery, we get the loaves unsliced. And so we have to slice the bread. And often I have come home to like the biggest hack job. It's like someone took like a hatchet, like from Lizzie Borden, to the loaf of bread. And I'm just like, how is anybody supposed to make a sandwich now? Because you cut it at such a crazy angle. So this means basically that something like when sliced bread, when you started to be able to buy sliced bread in the store, it was a game changer because now you weren't having to bring like hunks of shredded up bread to school to eat for lunch. You actually, and it's also more economical because think about it. If you try to slice bread and you get like 5 pieces that suck, you're now half a loaf down.
Right?
So
Yeah.
when you buy a loaf of sliced bread, it's so economical because now you can make 10 sandwiches that are all the same size and you've not shredded half your loaf of bread. So
Right.
I bet that's what it means.
You're sending your kid together to school with a container of peanut butter and jelly and then a bag of shredded bread, and they have to
Yes,
take one
exactly.
scoop of the peanut butter and jelly and then put some bread in their mouth
Yep.
and make a sandwich in their mouth. So I mean, it's pretty much that sliced bread is a great thing, right? Just because of all the challenges you said. But I thought it was interesting. So my source is All the Wiser. It's a bite-sized encyclopedia. So the earliest bread slicing machines appeared in America in the 1860s and used parallel blades to slice bread. However, they sat on shelves, mostly unused and unnoticed for decades. In the meantime, other machinery was developed that could produce loaves of bread of uniform shape and size. A jeweler, which I thought was really interesting, a jeweler from Iowa named Otto Frederick Rowetter, Rowetter invented the first electric bread slicing machine that worked in tandem with modern production methods. He built a prototype that was sadly in a fire in 1912. Rollwetter finished the machine in 1917, but many companies refused to buy it because they were concerned that consumers wouldn't be interested in pre-sliced bread. Weren't people just fine cutting it themselves? Additionally, they worried that the bread would crumble and grow stale too quickly if it were sliced. This problem was solved by wrapping the bread in wax paper immediately after it was sliced. The bread slicing machine was finally put into service in 1928 by the Chillicothe Baking Company in Chillicothe, Missouri. The Chillicothe Constitution Tribune ran a full-paged ad on July 6, 1928 to spread the word about the innovative new product. The ad noted that this gave Chillicothe Baking Company the distinction of being the first bakers in the world to sell sliced bread to the public. The greatest thing before sliced bread was wrapped bread. Bread had been mass produced, wrapped in wax paper, and sold to grocery stores since about the 1820s. After then, families no longer had to make several loaves of homemade bread every week. The combination of sliced and wrapped bread would prove to be an even more successful innovation for the bread industry. However, the first record of the idiom is thought to be in 1952, where the famous comedian Red Skelton said in an interview with the Salisbury Times, "Don't worry about television. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread."
Oh, that's so interesting.
Isn't it
Wait,
interesting to know
were
how?
were you a Red Skelton fan?
No, but I know of him. I mean, were
Oh,
you?
I don't because he was older than sliced bread.
Oh, God, she had that one loaded up and was just waiting for
Ah,
that.
yeah.
I just find it so interesting to hear the evolution of things. You know what I mean? Like it was a big deal to have it wrapped and put in stores, and then it was
Right.
sliced and wrapped. I don't know. I just think that's pretty cool.
But dude, what was that jeweler's last name again?
Stop it.
I mean, you know what? If I were him, I would have changed my
Roll
name.
wetter.
I would have changed my
Oh,
name
roll wetter.
to
I thought
Bedwetter.
I thought you were making fun of my pronunciation. It's
No.
spelled Rohwedder. Oh my God, I thought of you because in the last week or two, I heard a last name and I was going to tell you because of your last comment on Cox and all these other last names, but I came
The
across one that I
bushes.
was like, I'd have to change that for sure. I think
What was it?
I saw someone's last name was Hernia. Is that like, am I not, is it a Spanish word that you could pronounce some other way since you know
I don't
Spanish?
I don't know, but I think one of my kids goes to school with a kid whose last name is Seaman.
Oh
And
man.
yeah,
I
I mean it's
is it
like
SEA?
no,
SEAMAN?
I think it's like SEI, like the company Siemens. There's like
Uh
it's like a
was
medical supply company called or like something like that called Siemens. I don't know if I would hang on to that name real tightly.
no, no. And then if your first name was Richard, you would never use Dick, I'm
Dick
assuming.
Seaman.
But the one that really gets me is Cummings, Georgia. And it is spelled, it's not like they could have spelled it Coming. It's literally Cummings because my niece lived over
Oh,
there. And I remember I had to send something and I, you know, wrote out her address. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I
well, I
mean,
got one better than that in Burlington, North Carolina. There is a shopping center that has a huge sign and it's called Cum Plaza, CUMPLACA. And every time we drive by, I go,
what?
no one wants to go shopping in there.
Right. I mean, but then again, why, where did we get that word for the
Hey,
slang that
hey,
it's, you know?
ladies and gentlemen, come on down to Cum Plaza where we've got beds at 50% off today. Like, who's gonna? I've got lettuce, two heads for the price of one. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
God.
I'm sorry, I'll stick to the Safeway down the street. I'm not going down to Cum Plaza. Hey guys, where are we going tonight after the dance? We're all going down to the Cum Plaza.
Oh God. Oh my God. Okay, moving on. Okay, here's another one that I have said to someone in the last few weeks. I have a bone to pick with you. And the meaning is having a complaint that needs to be addressed, something to argue about, a matter to discuss, an unpleasant issue that needs discussion, right? It's usually like it's not a good discussion that you have to have someone with
Right.
someone when you say I have a bone to pick with you. So Joy, again in your infinite wisdom, please tell us where I have a bone to pick with you comes from.
Well, I don't know. You and I have talked about how we both used to love watching mukbangs. For those of
Mhm.
you who don't know what a mukbang is, it's one of these, they came from South Korea. There are these Korean eating shows, but there's all different kinds now. But one of the things that I noticed that Asian people do and other ethnic groups do that a lot of Americans don't do is when they eat meat off the bone, they pick the meat off completely. They eat
Oh my
all the
god.
skin, all the gristle, all the tendon, everything. And the bone is clean.
Oh my
And
god.
then they chew it
Yes.
all up, and so my guess is a bone to pick is like when you eat meat off the bone, you eat all the meat off the bone. So my guess is it comes from the way that we clean the meat off the bone, which would mean that you have a lot of meat to cover, a lot of like juicy stuff. I don't know. You have to tell me.
Yeah. Okay, and yeah, and I don't know how clear this one is, but I want to say as far as cleaning like the bone clean or cleaning the whatever, eating all the cartilage off of chicken bones and chicken, legs and stuff like that. I've watched mukbangs where they literally like a chicken wing. I love chicken wings, but I do not eat them like they do. They literally eat that cartilage on the end. And one time I tried it because it looks so good when this one YouTuber I watch does it, and I was like, ew, 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 ew. The texture alone is just disgusting. But do you remember that? I'm going off track, but I have to because it brought up this memory. Do you remember the Survivor? We talked about Survivor a couple of episodes back. Do you remember
Yeah.
this Survivor where there's that Asian girl on? I don't remember what
Yeah.
ethnicity exactly she was, but
It
they
was
had chicken.
Chinese.
Okay, and they had the chicken, and they could either keep it for the eggs or they could kill it and eat it or whatever. But anyway, they finally ate it. They roasted it over a fire and ate it, and they had those sidebar things. I've got to look up the name one day where they interview you off to the side, and somebody was so grossed out that
Yeah.
she freaking sucked those bones
Yeah, I think her
dry.
name wasn't her name PG? Like,
Oh, I don't remember.
I remember her, and I remember them being grossed out by the things she would eat because it was so annoying the way they went on about how she ate chicken. I was like, big freaking deal. Like, there
Yeah.
are cultures where they use every part of the animal. Just because we live in a country where we just discard the skin and we discard the this and it's like, oh God, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
found it so, so, so over the top and incredibly privileged that they just couldn't like grasp that somebody would eat chicken skin and,
Bones.
this
Yeah.
fat off the chicken and crunch up the bones to get the marrow. Remember, the
Oh, the
survivor
bone
diet,
marrow.
people lose 40 to 60 pounds in like 41 days. So she was hungry.
Yeah. Give them another 2 weeks and they would have been eating the bones too. Um,
Right?
yeah, I know in Japanese culture, and I'm sure in other Asian cultures, they oftentimes serve the fish whole, right? And it has the eye
Yeah,
in it. And I,
right.
I, I know that as a kid, I have watched a relative or two suck on the eyeball. So there you go. That's probably grosser than.
Tasty.
So I got this from the idioms.com.
Flavor,
Uh,
flavor country.
A bone to pick is an old idiom that dates back hundreds of years into the past. This proverb has been in use since the 1500s. Hundreds. It was derived from dogs and how they chewed meat off the bones. The meaning is also taken from canines and how they oftentimes fight over who gets to gnaw on a bone as a snack. During the late
Uh,
Middle Ages, dogs were primarily owned by hunters, soldiers, and people who could afford to keep them around. They were probably the first people to coin this phrase. This saying has also evolved over time to its modern use. Wouldn't it be funny? Like playing telephone line, where you sit in a row or whatever, and then one person starts what they're saying and they whisper it in that person's ear, and then they say, and then it comes out at the end, and whoever, the last person says what they thought it was, and it was completely different. Would it be funny if all of these sayings were completely different than what they were initially started off as? I
that
have a
would be
bone to pick with you. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's just about dogs like fighting over uh, bones. All
yep.
right. We are coming to our last two. Okay, this one I have to say, I don't think I said. I mean, I don't know. I can't recall the last. I can't say that I've never used it, but not to my recollection. And this idiom is a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And the meaning is it is better to have a lesser yet certain advantage at something than the possibility of a greater one that may come to nothing. So,
Hmm,
Joy, tell us,
interesting.
where does this come from? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Well, I think about like where do they call something the bush like in Australia? Like the countryside is called the bush. So I'm going to say it means like if you have a ostrich or an emu. Oh no, maybe it means remember those those people who have the birds and the gloves and then they have the talons so they wear the gloves so the talon doesn't
Uh
cut
huh.
into their
Uh
hand.
huh. Uh huh.
Maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it means you're luckier if you're holding on to that bird because it's a big bird of prey than if you're not holding on. Because if you're not holding on to that bird, I don't know. All I can say is this. I don't know where it comes from. I'm just riffing on nonsense. But
No,
I'll
you're
say this.
not.
I
You're not.
also don't understand people who have birds as pets. And if you're listening and you have a bird as a pet, I don't I please talk to me about why because one anyone who's had a bird as a pet knows that the bird can't shit in the crate. It always shits on the floor outside the cage. And number two, birds are supposed to fly around. So, what's the point of taking a bird out of the tree and sticking it in a cage and watching it like hit the
Oh
side
my
of the
gosh.
cage?
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
get it.
I was taking a sip of coffee and I almost did a spit take. I was not expecting that at
I mean,
all.
isn't that just like the weirdest pet to ever have? It would be like I also don't understand the people with alligators and crocodiles, but that's a whole different kind of animal. But yeah, I don't know where it comes from. You tell me.
No, you were actually pretty close. You were. I'm very impressed. So I got this. The origin, my source was aka theversatile.com. This proverb refers back to medieval falconry. I can't talk right now. It refers back to medieval falconry, where a bird in the hand, like a falcon, was a valuable asset and certainly worth more than two in the bush, the prey. So
Huh.
having a falcon was better than two birds in a bush who would be the prey. So you weren't far off.
Interesting. But it wasn't
Speaking,
in Australia.
no, they didn't mention Australia, but you got the falcon. Well, you didn't say falcon. Did you say falcon? You did, didn't you?
Well, I just
Anyway,
remember going to like the zoo and there was a guy with a glove, but I've also seen like videos where they like send this bird off flying and it goes and it like kills like a rabbit and brings it back to the guy with the glove. And I think to
yeah.
myself, I'm like, why not just get like a, I don't know, I don't, why not just go to the store and buy chicken? Like, why do we have to? And also, let the bird just fly around and be free. It's a bird, for fuck's sake.
I
Like,
know. I
it's
know.
not, I mean, it's not like, it's like those people who are like, I have, did you know that there's an animal, like a large cat rescue somewhere near here called the Carolina Large Cat Rescue, something or other? And they have rescued large cats from dumb dumbs who think, oh, I'm going to buy a large cat, bring it over. And then what am I going to do when it gets to be 2,000 pounds?
I know. I just,
It's like they can't think ahead. And just FYI, if you get a baby, anything, including a baby, think ahead. There's a point where that baby is going to be a full grown adult.
right? I
So, like,
know.
same thing with like a baby chimpanzee and
Oh, God.
a small alligator.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just don't get people who have birds. It just makes no sense to me. And also, why a bird that could peck out your eye or rip your arm off with their talons? Like, just investing in the rope and the glove and all that. And then the fact that you have to feed it raw meat, like, for the love of God,
I
like, get
know.
something else.
Yeah. What about little lovebirds or
I
parakeets?
know they need to be free. Birds need to
Yeah.
be
No.
free.
I don't
Let
know
them
if I could.
fly around, chirp, 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 and then let the falcon in nature swoop down and eat it.
All right. I hope we haven't offended any bird lovers out there. On to
And
our
if we have, write in and tell us about it.
okay. This is our last idiom, and I know that we all have probably used this. I know that Tig and Cheryl are close friends. No, Tig Notaro and Cheryl Hines used to have a podcast called uh, Tig and Cheryl True Story, and Joy and I are fans of that podcast. Anyway, they use this a lot, and in the way that Cheryl's always yelling at Tig not to spill the beans. So this is our last idiom, spill the beans, and the meaning, the phrase spill the beans means to reveal information that was meant to be kept private. So Joy, tell us, where does spill the beans come from other than the bean you thought was on the floor that was spilled and it ended up being a tick and you put it in your mouth?
Um, okay, I'm also going to tell you that we referred to like people who are accountants and or like people who work in banks as bean counters.
Uh-huh.
So I tend to think that beans might have been used as a way of counting, much like the abacus was used as a calculator once upon a time. But I'm actually like, so that's where my rational brain goes to. But I'm going to take it in another direction and say that when you eat beans, there is a magical thing that happens within like 6 hours or maybe less, maybe more.
Oh
But
no, no.
something
I
happens,
know.
and generally the person who eats the beans gets pretty gassy. And so I'm going to say that spill the beans. When you say don't spill the beans, you don't want somebody to like let the info out, much like when you eat the beans, you can't keep the gases inside. So I'm going to say it has to do with letting out of like the poo smell, the
I
fart.
thought you were going to say, yeah, pooping the beans out. But see, you guys, my friend Joy is so smart. And this is why I would be stranded on an island with her and no one else. Because
Wait,
she
and
would
don't forget the car and the iPad and the
because
dog.
because while I'm frustratingly holding my iPad because it won't turn on, she would be making a complete outfit with dental floss. Um, here's the thing, you are very close. I mean, I would say you actually got it on the head. And who knows? Who knows if these sources are correct, right? I could have been
Right.
making it up. Like you can go on Wikipedia and change stuff. You know, Smart List, they said they would do that to each other, right? They'd go
Oh,
on each
that's
other's Wikipedia and
hilarious.
so okay.
Does
Uh
that mean I can go to your Wikipedia? Okay, do you have a Wikipedia?
no, I don't think so.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Okay. All right. The source for this is Reader's Digest. Remember that? Reader's Digest. My mom used to have Reader's Digest. Okay. There are a few possible explanations for where spill the beans came from. So your gassy, theory could be possible, but one explanation dates back to ancient Greece when people would use beans to vote anonymously. So you're kind of right? Counting, using it as an abacus. Okay. White beans were used for positive votes, and for negative votes, black beans or other dark colored beans were used. Well, that's kind of racist. These votes were cast in secret. So if someone knocked over the beans in the jar, whether by accident or intentionally, they spilled the beans and revealed the results of the votes prematurely. I
Oh
really
my
like that
gosh.
one. But I
So
like
a
your
bean
meaning. I like your meaning
counter,
better. You eat beans and then you have to poop them out. That's how you spill the beans.
right? That is so interesting.
But you
So
got
I
it right. You should be so proud of yourself. You got the gist of it,
right?
with the
So
counting.
I looked up a bean counter, and it's a person who is concerned with business or government financial decisions and is often hesitant to spend money. Isn't that
Mm,
interesting? They're usually accountants or bureaucrats.
huh.
So it makes sense that spilling the beans, like the beans are used to count, like, important things. That's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Okay. All right. But this is what I want to say. Wouldn't it be cool to start a new idiom? You guys
Yes.
write in and tell us if you feel like you say something that you made up. You know,
Right.
the other thing that's very interesting to me is these young people who know these idioms, these old ones. I'm always really impressed. It's not that I'm saying they're not, intelligent. I would just think like they weren't exposed to these sayings. But a lot of these that we went over today, I will
Right.
hear like some young kids like that I work with saying them, and I find that fascinating because to me
Yeah,
it's like a
that is
lot of these
fascinating.
are so yeah, a lot of these are so old fashioned, don't you think?
Yeah. So, we used to work with a girl, me and a friend who shall remain nameless. And there was a girl that we worked with, and she used to say, "We need to kick it to the curve." And she would say curve like, a curve road instead of the
Instead of
curb,
curb.
URB. And it was so entertaining that we would not correct her. We just let her say, kick it to the curve. And now, as a result, whenever we're talking to each other, we'll say, "Oh, we need to kick that to the curve." And it's hysterical. I will
I
also
still
say that my grandmother um, used to use these idioms all the time, and she knew how they were used. And so, as a result, I now mix all my idioms and I say them all backwards because I can never remember which one goes with which. But one of the ones that she used to use all the time, which I
oh
butcher
my
on
god.
a regular basis, is the one six of one, half dozen of the other,
Oh,
which
what do you
which
say?
which is like, for example, in other words, if you wanted to say, I can take the bus or the subway to get home during rush hour, it's six of one, half dozen of the other. In other words, it's two alternatives that end up being the same thing.
Right.
But I'll say it's six tenths of one, five ninths of another, or I'll just throw a bunch of numbers out there that make no sense at all. But
Oh
I think
my
it's
god.
absolutely hilarious because I mean, I know what it means, and my husband knows what it means, but when I say it, I throw whatever numbers
Oh
in the
my
mix.
god.
It's
That is
hilarious.
so funny.
What's an idiom that you use all the time?
I like the squeaky wheel gets the grease because mostly because of the nostalgia for me. So when I was growing up in Hawaii at the dance studio, I was at the dance studio more than I was at school probably. And my dance teacher used to say that. And I was, 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. And she would say that all the time. And even as I got to be a teenager, because I studied with her for like 10 years, I still didn't really know what it meant, but I say it all the time now as an adult because it's
Right.
true. And this one literally is what you're saying, that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, you have to speak up sometimes in order to get things taken care of or done or whatever. But that one I say a lot. I do. How about
Oh.
you?
The
Besides your
other
9/10 and
Yeah, there's one other that I love that my grandmother used to use all the time, and it's each to their own, but she said
Mhm.
a longer version, and it was each to their own, said the old woman as she kissed the cow. Yeah, I'll say as she milked the cow or as she put lipstick on the cow and took it to church. I
Oh my
love to
god.
change it up because to me it's just hysterical. And it just reminds me of my grandmother every time I say it. So that's one that I love.
The other one I love is no good deed goes unpunished because that has come true in so many situations. The latest being that I have a new place and I was trying to be kind to the previous tenants and I was getting their mail instead of just throwing it out. I mean, if it was, if it looked like some flyer from the local place, I would throw it out. But if it looked important, I would write on there, no longer at this address. Okay. And there have been 2 or 3 names that have come up. So these people have not put in change of address forms. And in my trying to help them get their mail back, I stopped getting my mail.
Oh,
My mail person got so confused with who was living here. He or she decided, I'm not going to bring any mail here. Be kind to your fellow human being, everybody.
that's right, guys. You heard it here first and last. Be kind to each other because if you're
Oh,
not, if you're not, you're in for a rough go. And
yeah, it's
on that note, I just had to say thank you, Cheryl. This was riveting and informational. And even though we didn't talk about murder today, you know what is a crime?
what's that, Joy?
That we are out of idioms and time.
Oh, that is a crime. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and don't complicate your day. All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch created and managed by Kevin Callan. Podcast editing and advertising by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bojezek. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and YouTube, and you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.
Bye, fishes.